So I'm going to start over here with the air fryer because, yes, these things are amazing. This one will actually take the longest. So I'm going to try and get these done first. Tonight, what we're going to do is we have some of our Cajun seasoning. You have the recipe for that. I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil to it. This is just going to help the seasoning coat better, and it'll actually help the chicken wings brown. It's only about a tablespoon. I'm just going to mix it up. You can use a whisk, a spoon, anything you have at home. And it just needs to be a little bit of a liquid, nothing too crazy. Doesn't have to be overly liquidy or anything like that. So I'm going to come over here and grab some chicken wings. Keep in mind the biggest thing with an air fryer, don't crowd it. You're only, in an air fryer kind of like the one I have, you're only going to get probably maybe 6 chicken wings in it at a time. So I'm going to just toss these. Obviously at home use tongs, or if you have rubber gloves, use rubber gloves. Open it up. I'm going to just line my chicken wings up so there's plenty of room in between all of them. Right like that. One of the other reasons you'll put some olive oil on the wings, especially if you're using Cajun seasoning, is to keep the seasoning from burning. All the extra fresh herbs and everything in the seasoning will start to burn after a little while. For my air fryer, I have it set at about 380 degrees. It'll take about 20 minutes. After about 20 minutes, you'll want to shake them up a little bit, flip them over, and then they're going to go for another probably 10 minutes after that to help crisp them up.
Okay.
So those are going. And I'm going to move over here to my fryer because that's going to be the...
Sorry, we've got a question from Mary. I don't have an air fryer, but I do have a small convection oven, not onion. Would the directions be the same for both?
Yeah, so they'll be very close. So basically, when it comes down to it, an air fryer is essentially a small convection oven. It's really nothing new or fancy. They just decided to start advertising in a different way. Convection ovens will absolutely work the same, especially with a high fan. The higher the fan, the better it is, the faster it'll cook.
Doesn't it take that long, about that long in a regular oven?
It does. We're going to get to the oven.
Okay.
The oven will be the last one.
And did you preheat the air fryer?
I did. I only heated it was about 5 minutes away. So
okay.
About 5 minutes beforehand, I just turned it on just to let it get a little warm.
Great. And then Cindy says, I have a rack for my air fryer. What time amount? Will the time change at all?
No, that'll actually help it. It might actually be a little quicker because you get better airflow all around it. But most of these convection or air fryers do have that rack raised up a little bit, and the air does get right underneath it. So it should be about the same. It also depends on the power of your convection oven. 380 degrees is 380 degrees, but some of them might have a stronger motor in them for the fan. It might just blow hotter air faster around everything.
Great.
So we're going to move over to our fryer. What I have set up over here, I have a small induction burner. You can do this on your normal gas burners, electric burners. If you have an induction stove, that's anything will work. As far as a pot for this, you can use any tall-sided pot. One kind of neat trick I've always found is I have this nice flat bottom wok. What's really great about this is it has a nice flat bottom. It sits really sturdy on top of my burners. And it has nice high sides, and I can actually get away with less oil, which is really nice. So I have this. You're going to want to check your temperature, your oil. You're going to want it right around 350 degrees. It'll take a little bit to get up there. This I have had preheating for about half an hour now. It will take a little while to get your oil up there. If it's gas, it'll be a little bit hotter, a little bit faster. This is still a little bit light, so I'm going to turn on my power on this just to try and get it up there. It'll be okay if we start frying like this. They might, very seldomly, might be a little bit greasier with coming out, but you really won't notice anything with about 50 degrees.
Well, let's take some questions while we're waiting for that to heat up, what type of oil are you using?
I am using just regular canola oil. You can use vegetable oil. I would use any kind of cooking oil that doesn't have a lower smoke point, like olive oil.
Okay. And how much oil are you using?
This, in my wok right here, there's probably only about a quart or so. It really depends on, one, the volume you're frying and how big your pot is. Nice thing about a wok is these nice tall sides. You get a little bit less splatter, but you still have a lot of access to get in there.
And James was wondering, how do they make the traditional wings at Acre Bar and Duff's? Do you happen to know?
They honestly just deep fry them all the way through. From what I know, they just take chicken wings and drop them dry, just like I'm doing, right into the oil until they're done. It takes 12 to 16 minutes usually. They keep their fryers right at about 350 also. It's pretty much the going temperature. And that's what it is.
Great. And what do you do with the used oil when you're done?
You can reuse it. I would let it cool in the pot, whatever vessel you're frying in. Let it cool in there, and you can actually strain it through cheesecloth, and you can reuse it. You can probably get 2 or 3 uses out of it.
That's a great tip.
If you honestly really wanted to, you could cook something, you could saute with it the next night. It will have a little different flavor to it because you already cooked in it, but you could easily refry with it.
Okay, and is avocado oil okay?
It would be okay. It's going to be very expensive to do.
Okay, it's going to be expensive, Tom. Just fair warning.
You could do it. It has a nice high smoke point. It's great. It might impart a different flavor to it, but it will be on the expensive side, especially for something like this.
Okay, great. And AJ is wondering, because the temperature drops after the food is put into the oil, should the oil be heated slightly above 350 degrees?
No, it's gonna, if you have your burner on high enough, it's gonna recover fast enough. That's how normal fryers work. As soon as a fryer, like a commercial fryer, senses a drop in temperature, it automatically restarts those burners. So it automatically will sense that drop and restart. And it's going to do the same thing.
Okay, and Mary has a great question. That's a good segue. Do you pat dry the chicken before you put it in the fryer?
Yep, that's what I did on the sheet tray.
Okay.
Like I said before, any extra moisture on there will start to bubble and spatter. The wetter the wings, the more it's going to spatter when you go in there. I'm going to just check this temperature again. Should be pretty close. Doesn't want to heat up any higher than about 300. But we're going to drop them in there anyway, so it'll be okay. They'll take a little bit longer.
Okay.
So it'll be very gentle dropping them in. You can see how the bubble started really slow with that. That just means the fryer oil is not quite up to temperature yet.
And is it important not to crowd in here too? Okay.
Yep. That's going to be especially important in this fryer too, because we don't have that power to bring it up really fast. If you had a lot stronger of a burner behind this, it would bring that temperature up way faster. You wouldn't get as low of a drop, and you'd be better off. So I'm going to just let those go and kind of move them around, make sure they're all floating nicely.
Okay.
And they'll go. They'll take probably about 12 minutes or so.
And you want them floating because you want the oil to get all around the chicken wing?
Yep.
Okay.
They'll naturally sink towards the bottom, and as they finish, they'll start to rise up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So while these are going, the air fryer is going, we're going to move over to the baked chicken wings.
All right.
So you could obviously just take these wings, pat them dry, and put them on a baking sheet and bake them. About 400 for 20, 25 minutes or so. I'm going to show you a little bit different technique. It's kind of a sciencey different technique that I like. I enjoy doing this at home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wings. I'm going to put them in a bowl. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take some salt. Take about a teaspoon of salt and sprinkle it over the top. This is just regular kosher salt. And then this is where the science comes in. This is actually a little bit of baking powder. It's about a teaspoon of baking powder per pound of wings. And you sprinkle it over the top. And then we're going to mix these up and coat them. Now you're thinking, okay, why are we coating chicken wings? What we're going to do is if we had, especially if you have the room in the refrigerator for this, this is going to be your best bet because this will give you near fryer crispy wings without a fryer. Saves you a lot of mess. I'm going to coat these. I'm going to just mix this up really good. And you're not going to really tell there's any kind of coating on it. They're going to just look just kind of like a normal chicken wing. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to line them up on a big cookie sheet with a drying rack or cooling rack underneath. Or line them up right on here. Give them a little bit of room to breathe around each other. And I'm going to let those sit overnight, just like that, open in your refrigerator. You're going to start also thinking, well, those are going to dry out. That's exactly what we want. We want those to be as dry as possible, especially the outside, when we go into the oven. What the baking powder does is it actually changes the pH of the chicken. It makes it an alkaline, or makes the chicken have, the baking powder is an alkaline, so it makes it a basic. And it changes actually how the chicken breaks down in the oven. It helps it brown faster, and it helps it get crispier.
And why the cooling rack?
The cooling rack, what it does is it's going to serve two purposes. One, it lets air get all around it, and that also helps in the oven. When we put these in the oven, I'm going to bake these just on this cooling rack, just like it is. I might switch the cookie sheet because you will see some moisture start to leach out after a couple hours or so. Probably about an hour, you'll see a little drop here and there, and then you definitely will see a little bit of moisture on the cookie sheet before you put them in the oven.
Okay, let's see if we've got some questions about this. It was baking powder or baking soda?
Baking powder.
Baking powder.
They are interchangeable. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. Baking powder is sodium bicarbonate, cream of tartar, and cornstarch. Helps it gets a little bit more of the water out of them.
Okay.
It also, if you use baking soda, you can. You do run the risk of it having kind of a bitter aftertaste. You use too much baking soda, even if you use too much baking powder, you will start to get that aftertaste. That's why I always say about a teaspoon per pound. If you do try it and you do get an aftertaste, try a different brand of baking powder. Recommended to get one of the aluminum-free ones. Sometimes the aluminum will actually change that flavor. Once these have sat overnight, we're going to put them in our oven. We're going to actually preheat our oven to about 450. So it's a pretty hot cook. And we're going to put them in the oven for 450 for 20 minutes. About halfway through, we'll flip them. And then after about 20 minutes, we're going to flip them again. And every probably 5 minutes or so for the next 15 minutes, flip them again, just so they get crisp and everything on all sides. The baking rack only does so much. It's not like you have a suspended open air underneath it.
And Tim is wondering, can you use this technique in an air fryer too? The baking powder technique in the...
Yeah, you absolutely could.
Okay.
You would have to, I would just be mindful of watching the time and temperature on your air fryer because it will probably brown a lot faster.
Can you do this with wings that are frozen?
Yeah, just make sure they're fully cooked or fully thawed, and I would dry them out, or pat them dry as much as possible before you use them.
Okay, you don't want to put frozen ones in the oven.
Sure, you can. They're gonna take forever.
Okay.
Quite honestly,
Okay.
they're gonna take a very long time.
Let's see. I saw a recipe that said you should parboil the wings first and then bake them. What do you think about that idea?
It's gonna help cook them faster because they're obviously done. If I were going to do that, I would yet again make sure when they came out of the water, I would dry them as much as possible and then put them in again. And if I was going to do that, my oven would be at the highest it can possibly go. If I have a convection oven, I would turn it on as high as it can go and the fan as high as it can go.
Okay.
Just because you're boiling them, you're imparting extra water, extra moisture into it, and then you want that out. You're not going to get crispy with moisture.
Okay, gotcha. We've got some more questions for you, Andy. So why do you need to flip the chicken wings if they are on the rack in this baking method?
Because the rack is only, and if you can see this, the rack is only so high. You don't have, if you have hot air going all the way around it, a lot of it is going to go there, but some is still going to go underneath. If I were to cook these right on the cookie sheet, there's nothing going underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some going under, but not as much as you want. If you had the ability to put, say, this in your oven, just like this, where air can get completely all the way around it, you wouldn't need to flip it.
Okay.
You might want to, just so you don't get cookie sheet or drying rack lines on them, but that's purely cosmetic.
Okay. Oh, wow. Susan kind of threw me for a loop on this one.
Sure.
Can you use a hair dryer to dry the wings?
You could,
Wow.
but it's probably not, you don't need to go that crazy.
Okay.
Patting them dry is good enough. If you really want to get them dry, maybe change the paper towels at this point and start with a new set of dry paper towels. But that's about all you should have to worry about.
All right, great. And then can you sauce the wings before baking?
I would recommend, especially if you're using like a barbecue sauce, to do it after they're done and crispy. You're not gonna, if you do them too early, yes, the sauce will be baked into them, but you're not gonna get them as crispy. So if you take them when they're really nice and crispy, right out, and I were to baste these, just any basting brush, any barbecue sauce, baste them, coat them really good. I would put them in the oven for about 5 minutes or so to let that bake on, and probably do the same, repeat on the other side. I would flip them again, repeat the other side. That way, it'll let the barbecue sauce bake onto it. You'll get that kind of gooey barbecue, that warm barbecue texture to it on top of having it crispy. If you do it too early, you'll have this kind of gummy all the way.
Okay. All right, so you want to get the chicken wings nice and crispy first, like these. And then will you show us how to baste them, Andy?
All I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I would always,
We're
you
using,
don't have to.
this is what we're using, everyone. Dinosaur barbecue.
I'm just going to take it, I'm not going to brush it on too heavy because I want it to kind of sit on there. I'm going to coat them as best as possible. I'm just kind of dabbing it on. I'm not really. I'm not really like painting it on where I'm going to just run everything off. I want it to kind of sit on there.
Mm.
Yet again, if you wanted to, you could take these off and you could put them in a bowl and shake them. That's totally fine too. You don't have to use a pastry brush for this. You can use a spoon will work just fine. And that's about it. I'll put them in the oven for about 5 minutes. Nice high temperature. Then it'll start getting caramelized and crispy or gooey. and flip them and do the same thing. Maybe a couple times, depends how much sauce you want.
All right, let's see. Got some more questions here. If using a baking powder technique, can I also use another coating, for example, seasoned flour? And will they have an extra crisp to them? It's a great question.
That is a great question.
Love that.
They most likely you probably wouldn't see too much of a difference, in all honesty, because your crispy in that regard is going to be the outside coating, which is going to be your flour. You might see a little bit if it's just flour that you put them on. It might be a little bit nicer, might be a little bit crispier. But if you were going to say like batter these and then fry them, I would say not even worry about that stuff because that batter is going to be your crispy sandwich.
Okay, and I think this question kind of goes along with that. Can you use the same sort of Cajun sauce on the baking powder baked wings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would just, as I said with this, I would make it's Cajun sauce. I wouldn't put it in. I would put it in kind of when I do this with the barbecue sauce towards the end, only because you don't want it to burn too much. Burnt paprika and fresh herbs really isn't that good.
It's not the vibe.
It's kind of bitter. I'm just going to go over here and check these. I have a nice spider here, so I'll just kind of move them around, kind of see it close. Make it crispy. Over here and check on these just to see what we're looking like. This might be a good point to flip these so you can see how dark these are going to come out. That's from the Cajun seasoning.
Hold on one sec. Oh, yeah. Oh, those look really good.
From here, I'm going to just grab my other pair of tongs and flip them. And I can feel it. Obviously, it's a little hard to tell. These do start to have a little crisp to them.
Mm-hmm.
They smell fantastic.
They smell so good.
Just put them in and keep going with them. Mm-hmm.
Is this where we increase the heat?
Yeah, you can, if you want, you can increase the heat to about 400. Does the timer go off?
All right, so for the air fryer, you're going to do 380 for about 25 minutes, and then we're increasing the heat to 400 to get even more crispiness. All right, nice. Let's see what the questions are.
Sure. While you're doing that, I'm going to just take the temperature of these just to make sure and play safe that they're close to done.
And what is the temperature they should be?
165 is at least minimum for poultry.
Okay.
Your chicken wings, if you want them really crispy, are going to be way higher than that. They're going to be up over 200. That's perfectly fine.
Is chicken wings are dark meat, right?
Chicken wings are not.
They're not?
No, they're from the breast.
Oh, okay.
They're basically the arm of the chicken.
We've got some questions about the kind of wings you're using.
Sure.
Any recommendations for what to look for when buying wings? Any recommendations for brands? And which wings do we use at the Lexington Co-op?
Sure. The wings I use in the kitchen, when we do them, are Freebird. Right over here. They're never given antibiotics. They're a great chicken wing. They have a great flavor. This is what we sell in both stores. Fantastic product. When you are buying these, I will say, if you're trying to compare these to any of the pizza places, these will be small. A lot of the pizza places will buy what are called jumbo wings. They're the absolute biggest chicken wing you can get. So they generally will run a little bit smaller than them, but they're a far superior product.
And Carol, we have those here at the Lexington Co-op. She's wondering where to get those.
Yep, we have those here. And my full stores. We will be We will be having chicken wings in the grab-and-go sets for this weekend's game, as well as we are doing pre-orders for our owners only for our game day heat and eat, which is it features chicken wings, chicken fingers, any kind of game day foods you can. You can pre-order those right online on our web cart. Closing for those are open through Thursday night, and then Friday or Saturday we're going to prep those, and we'll have them for pickup after 3 o'clock on Saturday.
Super fresh. Okay, that actually goes with someone's question. Can you make the wings Saturday and then just warm them up Sunday for the Super Bowl?
Absolutely.
That's what we're gonna do, Florence.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely. For cooking temperature time, I would just bake them in a nice single layer. It's going to be your best bet.
Okay.
Because they will be sauce. They will have sauce on them already. If you start putting them in a fryer and air fryer to reheat them, you run the risk of burning the sauce a little bit.
All right.
Air fryer probably isn't too bad.
You just answered Chris's question, which is great. And then Chris is also wondering, do you have a preferred type of thermometer that you're using?
I come from restaurants. I've been cooking for 15 plus years now. I've fallen in love with these digital folding ones. This is actually, I've had this thermometer in my knife bag for 8 years now. And I've never replaced the batteries or anything. It's never failed me. It's nice. It's magnetic. It kind of sticks to everything. I prefer this over everything because it does get hot enough. It goes up to 400 degrees, so it can be actually used as a candy thermometer too. It's kind of nice for kind of all around cooking.
Ooh, okay. We've got a good question from Tim. So the fryer and the air fryer means you need to do things in batches.
Yep.
So what's the best way to keep the first batch warm and crispy while doing the others?
I would put them, I'm going to go back to my oven, put them right on, just on a setup just like this. On a pan, on a rack, so the air can get underneath. Any type of moisture that you're going to get to them is going to be harmful to them. It's going to change their temperature. That's why some places, like when you buy French fries for takeout, they'll cut big holes in the boxes so the steam gets out. That keeps them crispier.
Okay.
It's letting the moisture out. So I would put them right on here, lay them out nice, don't let them touch each other, and just keep them in a very low oven while you're doing it.
Okay.
If you wanted to do, say, any of these the day before, you could do the same thing. You could cook them in batches, cool them, and then just, if you're going to refry them the next day to get them crispy, I wouldn't sauce them. I would sauce them right as you're getting ready to eat them.
Okay.
The best way, out of the fryer, right into the sauce. Same thing with the air fryer.
It's a great tip. Okay. And then he had a point too that maybe smaller wings would be crunchier wings.
Very possibly. It's basically the skin on them that gets crispy, crunchy. So the more skin you can get on them, the better. The crispier and crunchier they are.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Do you have to oil the rack so the chicken wings don't stick to it?
You can. It'll help your cleanup in the end.
Okay.
You don't have to, but it never hurts.
It's a good point, Tammy.
It never hurts to have just a little nonstick spray on there. It'll ease your cleanup in the end.
Yeah. And is there a healthier choice between air fry and oven bake? Pan fried, oven, or air fryer? I'll eat them all.
I would probably go with either the oven or the air fryer. This is bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
This might be the tastiest, but this is probably the worst for you. Either baking and air fryer, you really don't have any oil on them, and it gets a lot of the extra grease off them, the fat off them. So I would probably go with either air fryer or oven.
Great. And Judith is wondering, could you use the oven trick with the salt and the baking powder with boneless chicken strips, like with any chicken?
You could. Anything you bread, you're kind of, once you start putting the bread in on it, you lose the the crunchy aspect on that, because you're basically here, you're using the skin as the crunchy aspect.
Oh, okay.
But once you start putting breading on it, you move that to the outer layers. So if you had, say, if you were doing some kind of, there's really not a chicken, maybe like a thigh or something. If you're doing some kind of roasted chicken thighs or something, you could do that. You could spread this right on the skin of it, and it'll get nice and crispy. But once you start putting extra breading on there, you're not going to really notice too much of a difference.
Okay.
You run the risk actually probably with breasts and tenders, you might run the risk of actually drying the chicken out.
Oh, okay. All right.
So these wings are pretty much done.
Nice. See the color on there.
I'm just going to let them drip for a little second. Ready to go in a bowl. And then this is just a basic buffalo sauce that's equal parts Frank's and butter. Melted the butter first and added the Frank's in. I'm just going to coat them a little bit. But how much sauce you put on there is how saucy you like the wings. And then you can toss it. You can use your spider or tongs. Coat your wings. There's, put those right onto a platter.
Yum, those look great. All right, Hazard is wondering, is there a trick to getting the tossing sauce to stick onto the wings? Our sauce always seems to want to slide off when we fry in oil.
I would definitely have some, it kind of depends on what the sauce is. I would make sure it has, as you can see, there's a little bit of fat in this sauce, the butter. So it helps coat it a little bit better. And it'll help it to stick to the proteins.
And for the buffalo sauce, it's equal parts butter and Frank's hot sauce.
Yep, that's just a very basic one.
Okay.
You can kind of take it any direction you want. Some places will put some garlic and some onion in there, garlic powder, onion powder. You can kind of season it however you'd like. Very basic, very straightforward and simple. It's just butter and Frank's.
Just a couple ingredients. And if you wanted hotter wings, do you use less butter?
Yep, absolutely. Less butter, more hot sauce. And same thing, this is about medium. If you wanted mild wings, you'd do probably 3/4 butter to 1/4 hot sauce. Just lessen the amount of hot sauce or increase the amount of hot sauce. If you want it really hot, you can add other kinds of hot sauces. But you could do this as a base, and then if you want it really hot, use this as a base and add another type of hot sauce to this, or chili flakes to this. There's some places that will take this and actually add Cajun seasoning to it.
Ooh.
So you get like a Cajun Frank's. So
Wow.
it's really, really free range once you get to that point of what you want to do.
Awesome. Let's see. Should we check on the, let's go check on the air fryer. And anyone else, if you have any other questions, we're getting towards the end of the class, so go ahead and drop them in the Q&A.
Just take the temperature of these. These feel nice, and these are nice and fully cooked. They do feel nice and crispy.
Nice.
Out so everybody can see them. That's the air fried ones.
They look great. Chris is wondering, salted or unsalted butter with the buffalo sauce?
My personal self, I grew up in kitchens, and kitchens always use unsalted butter for everything. That way you can actually tell how much salt you're putting into it. Because if you have a pound of butter, you don't actually know that sodium content. You can use salted. It's really personal preference. I would, if I were to do it, I would use unsalted and go from there.
And can you air fry without the seasoning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I would dry them off. And just put them right in the air fryer. About the same cooking time. temperatures, everything like that. The seasoning just adds a little bit extra to it.
All right, the rub looks great, but can you air fry them and plate? Yep, got that one. Got some jealous viewers that they can't have these chicken wings. And let's see. What else do we have? Ooh, any recommendations for wine to pair with the wings? Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
That is a great question. I would go with anything, especially if it's spicy, something light, a white, really nice white, crisp white would go with it really well. I really wouldn't get too much. Any of the lighter reds, like a rosé, might be pretty nice too. I wouldn't go any really deep dark reds, like the Merlots and the Cab Sauves or anything like that.
And
definitely something light and crisp, and maybe a little tart too, because you got some spicy. The tart would help set that off too.
nice. And how about a beer pairing? I like where this is going. This is awesome.
Beer pairings, pretty much, I would say any preference. Probably wouldn't go anything too heavy, like a stout. Same thing, kind of like the wines.
Okay.
Something a little bit lighter, a little bit more refreshing, a little crispness to it. I would stick away from the stout, like the milk stouts and things like that. But,
I know IPAs are good with spicy food too.
Yeah,
So if you got some
IPAs
spicy wings.
we got a lot of flavor and it'd be pretty good.
All right, and will seasoning the wings the day before make the flavor stronger?
Absolutely. I mean, it's gonna just help it go into the wing a little bit more. Just be careful with your seasonings. I'm a very big proponent of not having burnt seasoning because it does change the flavor. It makes it really bitter. It has a possibility any kind of green herb will turn bitter in the fryers or in the ovens, anything like that. Once it starts to scorch, it will change the flavor a little bit. But you can marinate them beforehand and pat them dry. I wouldn't marinate them and put them in the oil. That's asking for a lot of mess.
Okay, and Pamela's wondering if I like my wings less charred, should I lower the temperature of the air fryer?
Yeah, absolutely. You could. A lot of that, what you're seeing on there, isn't the actual wing itself. A lot of that is the Cajun seasoning on it.
Which has a lot of darker spices, so that's why it's
there's a
nice
lot
and
of
dark.
darker spices, and it will just darken in the fryer or the air fryer. You have a lot of heat going in there, so.
Okay, great. One second. Let's see. Got so many thank yous. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got the most important question though here, Andy. Blue cheese or ranch?
It's blue cheese.
Blue cheese, straight up.
All the way.
And you can show everyone. Oh.
You can get our Lexi's Kitchen blue cheese right in our grab-and-go sets now. We also are offering vegan blue cheese. Doesn't exactly go with chicken wings, but it is there and it is available. So look for it in both stores and grab-and-go sets. If you're looking to try these at home and you don't want to try one of the store-bought ones, you can get ours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy your wings. Oh my gosh.